Take another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from a humble past.
Hello! Welcome back, you fucking putanas, to Talkin Guff podcast with me, your host, Ruben Django Pouch. Boom! It's been a while, it's definitely been a while, and it just seems like the gap is getting bigger, but in fairness to me, I've been procrastinating like a motherfucker these days. I had a free gaff, essentially, which is a bit pathetic to say at 37 years of age. But my young lad has gone away with his mum for an extended period of time to Fuerteventura. And my own mother, who I live with, went to Italy for like 10 days. And yeah, things got degenerative. I digressed. Let me say that much. Smoked hella weed. Hella weed. Watched the whole Rush Hour franchise pretty much back to back over the space of a couple of days. First of all, Rush Hour number 1 is a stone cold classic. It's a fucking classic. Chris Tucker is a legend in it. He's so fun. Whatever happened to Chris Tucker? I know he was in Silver Linings Playbook, but after the Rush, apart from the Rush Hour franchise, he was in Friday, I suppose, but he didn't do a whole lot more. And I wonder if that was because he couldn't get parts or he just had a few quid and was like, fuck it. But he's deadly in it, and he's fucking amazing in Silver Linings Playbook, which is a beautiful movie. Anyone who hasn't seen it should go and see it. So Chris Tucker, legend. Jackie Chan, like, let's be real here. Jackie Chan might be the greatest entertainer on planet Earth. He's like a modern day. What's your man's name? It's not Buster Douglas, is it? The original sort of Hollywood stuntman, did all his own stunts. Something Buster for definite. I'll get it and I'll put it boop there. But that's what Jackie Chan's like. He's like a modern day version of that dude. He's fucking unbelievable. Jackie Chan is the bomb. The soundtrack is by Cisco. I mean, you can't lose. Chris Tucker, Jackie Chan, soundtrack by Cisco. Ooh, that dress so scandalous, with the look in her eye so devilish. She like to move with the hip hop pop. Move it, connect the dots. Let me see that. Baby, when your booty go bottom. I like it when your booty go bottom. Baby, let your booty go. I want to let my booty go. What a classic tune that was. Who remembers it? I do. What's the year? I'm going to say 98. Fact check. That's sort of what I watched a lot of porn as well, I'll have to say, and I think pornography is something we could almost dedicate a whole podcast to. It's toxic shit, and I engaged with it quite a lot, I have to say, during my free gaff, and I masturbated quite a lot. So, we're going to have a little bit of a talk about JR getting the vid. We're going to have a little talk about Leo and his tone deaf antics, and we're going to have a talk about these two mental YouTube videos that I seen in one of my whilst engaging in one of my rabbit hole experiences, and we'll talk about them, and we'll just pepper a few other little bits in and around. All right. So yeah, procrastinating like cray cray the last week. I ate McDonald's 4 times in a week. That's where we're at. That's how bad it was. That's how far I digressed. Okay? Watched hella porn. And another tool of procrastination, which I used thoroughly, was Grand Theft Auto 5. Wow. I've got like a shitty Xbox 360 that my good friend Rob Hoban gave to me. Big shout out to Rob. And I bought GTA 5 on it when everyone fucked off and I had a free gaff. And I'd never played it. It's like 10 years old. It's been out for years. And you wouldn't think it, I don't think, to play it. It's amazing. It's fucking amazing. End of discussion. The gameplay is phenomenal. Like I said, it's 10 years old, I think, that game. Or at least 8 or 9 years old, and it's like a brand new game, I suppose. I don't know. Maybe they've gone as far as they can go with the sort of gameplay engines and stuff. I don't have a fucking clue what I'm talking about really when I say that, but it still doesn't seem in any way dated or out of date. It's fucking deadly. The map size is phenomenal. It's unbelievable that human beings designed this thing. I don't know how these lads aren't all like getting paid massive money to be city planners and stuff like that. The detail that goes into that game is phenomenal. Like I said, the gameplay detail, the map detail, like even the signs and stuff you'd see around the place, the NPC, like the non-playable characters, what they say, how they move, the differences between them. It's fucking unbelievable. One of the things, and I'm pretty sure we all know about this, or we all know this about the Grand Theft Auto franchise, but the music is fucking deadly. The music's amazing. And you can change all the radio channels, obviously, but there are songs on there, like there's a reggae radio channel, and it has some of the best, some absolute killers that you just don't hear, like. And the West Coast hip hop one is dead. It's all brilliant, and the detail, and then like you're talking about real like musicophile stuff, like when I'm talking about the songs being played on the video game on the radio station when you're in the cars, it's sort of like you can tell whoever's put this together are like they're music freaks. You know what I mean? So it's brilliant. I love that because I'm a music freak, and also then the bits like I'm on the Monster. Big shout out to Monster. Really bad for you, honestly, but it's like drinking dynamite. And this one sort of tastes like fizzy Cure or something. It's fucking delicious. But the bits in like on the radio bits, like the news bits you hear, your man Laszlo, the adverts, it's fucking comedy gold. They're geniuses. Whoever makes GTA, like I know, fuck the company, I'm talking about the individual people who make that shit. They are geniuses. Yes, and that's the one thing that just kept occurring to me as I was playing, is just like the detail of this is phenomenal. It's like a book. That sounds like real 21st century retard stuff to say. I don't read books. I play Grand Theft Auto. But you know what I'm saying. It's like the fucking Lord of the Rings of the video game world. Let's get into one of our hot topics. First off, JR getting the vid. Mr. Joe Rogan got coronavirus. And I just want to sort of go through the article and explain what my sort of issues surrounding that were. There is an article which I'm going to discuss here in The Independent, and I'll just say first and foremost that the New York Times and CNN both did an article, okay, about this subject. And this article in The Independent and an article just like it in the Irish Times are pretty much direct copy and pastes of those original two articles, the CNN and the New York Times one. Pretty much, like it's like I would take a bit of that one here, bit of this one there, and so on. So number one, like my first thing is like, are you even writing your own stories anymore, lads, in The Independent and the Irish Times? Or are you just content with copying and pasting CNN and New York Times, and then that's it, that's your job, that's journalism? Anyway, so first off, the heading: podcast star Joe Rogan tests positive for COVID-19 after comments dismissing vaccines. So I have no idea what the relevance of the comments dismissing vaccines things was, part of that headline was, but what I do know is that, like, I saw an article, and I was saying this to a guy I know, Al, Original, the artist. I was saying, isn't that headline sort of weird? I said, I've seen this article before, and it was said, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically the headline read something like, COVID denier dies of COVID. And it was almost like, what a spa, ha ha ha, fuck him, you know. And I said that to my friend Original, and he said, I've seen loads of those articles written. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, and they struck me in that same way that you're saying, like it was almost like, oh, look at that tick, didn't believe in COVID, and he died, haha. And so, the other side of that is you could probably, I'm assuming, and I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. But I'm pretty sure you could write an article that said something like, twice vaccinated person who believes vaccines will end the pandemic dies of coronavirus. And haha, that person thought the vaccine was going to save them, and it didn't. They died. And so I'm sure we could come up with loads of headlines like that, like with actual points in case, or case in point, whatever the fuck it is. Case in point. Thanks, Ruan. And so I thought straight away, I was like, that already smacks a bit, doesn't it? And more than it smacks a bit, it's trying to make people who are wary of the vaccines look and feel stupid. You know, it's like, look at these fucking idiots, these anti-vaxxers who are getting coronavirus. It says nothing about, look at these vaxxers who are getting coronavirus. But Joe Rogan, the massively popular blah, blah, blah. And you can read this article yourself. I'll put it up here, but there was an interesting bit where it said, he said he had been treated with a series of medications, including monoclonal antibodies and the steroid prednisone. Rogan also said he was treated with a vitamin drip and ivermectin, which is primarily a veterinary deworming agent. Now, that is the part of this article that I take total exception with, okay? Because regardless of whether or not you think ivermectin is capable of treating coronavirus, and there are people out there who believe it can, there are people out there who in fact believe ivermectin could end the pandemic tomorrow. In spite of all of that, whatever, right? And people could argue that it's this, that, and the other, but in spite of all of that at the moment, the statement that ivermectin is predominantly a deworming medicine is a false statement. And there's no question about that. That's not a conspiracy. Go and have a look at said medication yourself. It's one of, and we'll talk about this in another minute, it's one of the WHO's essential medicines. It has been administered to at least 2 billion human beings. All right, that's what it was developed for. It's an anti-parasite drug, and they used it over 2 billion times on human beings. At least it cured river blindness and other diseases throughout the world. Okay, it's one of the most highly administered drugs on the planet. So it's not, straight away we can just say it's not predominantly a deworming medicine, and that is obvious. And you saying that is a false statement. Now, I'm willing to concede that it is used in a veterinary capacity or environment, certainly, just like Benadryl is given to dogs and certain steroids are given to dogs. It doesn't make them predominantly veterinary medicines. It means that there's overlap there and it gets used from time to time. And that is happening, no doubt, with ivermectin. They do that. And so, but the idea that it's predominantly a deworming medicine for animals is total bullshit. It's a false statement. And The Independent, had they not just copy and pasted CNN's article and looked into ivermectin for themselves, which is what they're meant to do as journalists, if they had done that, they would have seen straight away, oh, right, yeah, look, in spite of the sort of mixed opinions with regards to coronavirus, we can't really argue on the fact that it's not a predominantly veterinary medicine. We can't, okay? So I just thought that straight away, fuck you, The Independent. But then again, we're not surprised by that situation, you know? So, like, moving away from that article to the situation itself, I thought, for some reason, that Joe Rogan had the vaccine. I don't know why. I just was under the impression that he had. And I watched the episode in which he was dismissive of vaccines. I think it was 1671. It's the one with Brett Weinstein and Pierre Corey. But I watched that episode. At the time, I talked about it on this podcast. And I certainly didn't think that he was spouting anti-vax rhetoric or anything like that. I thought he was talking total common sense, actually. And I certainly didn't get an anti-vax vibe from him. And some of the stuff he was saying, I definitely didn't think was radical by any stretch when he was talking about the vaccines in that episode. And so, just dismissive of vaccines. Well, I think he just said that it's not necessarily necessary for fit young people to take said vaccine. And that the guy, Robert Malone, maybe, who invented mRNA technology, was saying the same thing. And so, look, they're just like potentially obvious conversations we'd want to have. And so I didn't at the time think there was anything totally mental about what he said. I was happy to see him say those things, take a chance, take a bit of a risk with it. But at the time I didn't realise he had faced any backlash, but it seems he had. But that article, it's crazy because the other thing they never said was, and it worked. No one said that. No one said he tried a vitamin D pack or drip and he got the monoclonal steroid or monoclonal antibodies and the steroids and ivermectin. He got all that stuff, ... and it worked. No one said that. No one said, oh, he didn't have the disease. He was better 2 days later or whatever it is. And maybe you would argue that Joe Rogan, being as sort of healthy as he is, would be better in 2 days anyway. But no one even mentions that, not for a second. And I thought, again, that totally smacks. And the other side of that is I think that mass media, and that's what they are, and they are towing the line for various institutions and billionaires around the world. But I think that they don't realise that it's actually more damaging to them to sort of not properly... Because people see that stuff and they go, that's bullshit. Now, these are bullshitting and we know you're bullshitting, so why are you bullshitting? So I think it makes people more suspicious when they don't do their jobs properly, is what I'm saying, I suppose. But on the subject of ivermectin, there's an MP, I got the video and it's from a couple of months ago, truth be told, but it's a guy in Australia, an MP in Australia, discussing ivermectin. And he's sort of just like a big Aussie bloke, almost like Alf from Home and Away or something. But he talks sort of really succinctly or really transparently about ivermectin, and he references dozens of peer-reviewed studies, which there are now at this stage. There are dozens of peer-reviewed studies, including thousands of patients at this stage. Look into it for yourself, I suppose. But he references those peer-reviewed studies. He references Tess Lowry, who is an expert in medicinal evidence, shall we say. He also talks about a drug, and we'll put it up here, Bop. I forget the name of it at the moment, and I will get the name and I'll plaster it right on the screen. But there's a drug out there with one peer-reviewed study, which has been... granted approval as a treatment for coronavirus, and it's only got one study, and they won't do the same for ivermectin, which has dozens of peer-reviewed studies with thousands of patients involved. And this one, it's probably because this one makes money for someone, this one with the one reviewed study. And he also says, like I've said, that it's a WHO essential medicine. It's listed as one of their essential medicines. The WHO has overseen its administration throughout the world, in third world countries and all over the world. And so, again, he's just hitting home those points that it's something we need to have a look at, and it's something that shouldn't just be poo-pooed or told, you can go fuck off with yourself. And like we said, whether we don't know was that, but Joe Rogan took it. He reckoned he was fixed in a couple of days. And obviously Joe Rogan is like a fucking multi-millionaire, and he can just call up some private doctor and get a prescription of whatever he wants. And that's that, he's got serious white privilege, I suppose, to take advantage of. But there's no reason why that shouldn't be available to everyone. It costs less than €1 to make a dose of ivermectin. So can we again say that potentially the benefits of ivermectin are being purposefully looked over because they are of a financial disadvantage to multinational and multi-billion dollar companies? Can we maybe float that idea? I think it's probably pretty sound, It's definitely not outside the realms of possibility. Historically, we've seen evidence to suggest. So, he makes this amazing contrast, or I don't know what the right word for it would be, but he basically says, he's talking about all this stuff in the Australian House of Government. He's talking about, ivermectin and all the stuff we just talked about there. He's having that conversation with other members of Parliament in Australia. But he says that by contrast, if he tried to have that conversation on YouTube, he could potentially be that conversation could potentially be deleted from YouTube. He could potentially be censored. And he makes this amazing point. He's like, how can a conversation that is appropriate for our own houses of government be somehow inappropriate for a public publishing platform like YouTube? And that's a really interesting point to make. It's a really clever point to make. It's just like, how could we be thrown off Facebook? How could conversations be deleted from Facebook if they're appropriate or to have in our own house of government? And you then start to see that it's a total abuse of power by the company involved, YouTube, I suppose. And what then is their agenda? What is their angle? Why is it advantageous to them for these conversations not to be allowed? Is it because they're probably rub shoulders with the CEOs and shareholders of these massive companies that are making loads of money from this situation? Maybe some of those board members, CEOs, etc. overlap. Maybe the company, you know what I mean? And so, interesting stuff, and a really amazing point. I think his name was Alan Kelly or something. I don't know. I'll put it up here as well. He's a fucking hero. All of this stuff, like I've said, just makes me feel again that this is totally about money. Like we said, why would you censor these conversations? Why would that be an advantage to you? And because we've spoke before about the emergency legislation granted to these vaccines would be in question if we were to find out or realise that we have an established treatment available to us. So basically, if it's like, oh, that ivermectin thing works, it's just like, all that's gone. And all the money they make from it's gone. And you're trying to tell me they wouldn't do whatever they could, whatever it took to suppress these conversations? Of course they would. In my opinion, for definite. That's the world we live in. We know. Just look around. So, again, could this situation be pandering to or lining the pockets of these international big pharma, big tech, big business heads? Could that be happening? Could they be influencing our government to impose legislation that is to their advantage? I definitely think that shit is happening, or does happen, has been happening potentially for years in the States with various different industries, sectors, etc. If you don't think that big business and the sort of detrimental effect big business has on ordinary working classes and the environment and our institutional complicity isn't an issue, well, look at the housing crisis in this country right now. We are looking at a situation where there are thousands upon thousands of people in this country without a home. And we're not a poor country by any stretch of the imagination. We've spoke about this countless times. Large economy, small population, sort of not a very broad demographic to cater to. Should be an easy governance situation. And then we have a situation where there's thousands of people living in temporary accommodation or living on the streets entirely, which is totally unacceptable, and it's totally spinning out of control. Like, it's getting worse. And the reason, like we've discussed so many times, that this situation is here and is so bad is because international big business is making a fucking packet off it, and our government don't give a fuck. Sure, what's his name? housing minister, and he's in a bit of hot water for something else. Maybe we'll have a quicker look at that now in a second. But he was sort of saying in an article I was reading a while ago, when we discovered that 3,500 houses had been sold off plan in the last 12 months to international financial interests, instead of, being sold as homes at a reasonable price to the citizens of our country. It's all built to rent shit. He was saying, well, we can't really tell them to fuck off because it's worth so much to us. So right there is a way in which big international business and big international money has a detrimental effect on the citizens, ordinary working class people of the country in question, and evidence that the government are totally complicit in the situation. They won't stand up to these guys and tell them to fuck off. Tell them you can come back and make a few quid when we have a home for every man, woman and child in the country. They're not interested in doing that. They're living in a distorted reality where they don't have to understand or suffer the same fate as most people, most ordinary working class people. And so, right there, and that's how it starts. And there's probably loads more instances or, cases of that sort of situation. But right there with the housing crisis is a way in which big business is being able to operate with impunity to the detriment of me and you. And the people that we've elected to look after us don't give a fuck. In fact, they're going to help them. That's just one case. You see then as well, I just saw an article again, and this is compounding the housing issue, and no one seems to be doing anything, where a guy who was building a massive hotel has now turned around and he's swapping his planning for an apartment block. And just like this 1,600 person apartment block out in Drumcondra or wherever it is, it's all going to be studio and one bedroom apartment shit, which will not tackle the housing crisis in this country one bit. All that serves to do is make money line the pockets of these fucking already insanely wealthy people. How come it's just so unfair? Let's get together, mobilise, and beat the fuck out of these bastards. On the monster. Bit of pepper. Here's an article for you. And when I read the headline, and am I a crazy person then? Please comment in the comment section below if I'm a crazy person, right? Because when I read the headline of this article, I was just like, that's insane. That's insane. And here is the headline. It said, I think I'm building it up a bit too much, but it said, WHO expresses doubts about vaccines ending pandemic. And that's in RTE.ie. And I was just like, what? But that's the whole narrative we've just been sold for the last 12 months. That's why everyone just, without question, stuck their arm out for an untested stage 3 drug, because you promised them it would end the pandemic. That's what you said. It's the only way out of it. And now the WHO, the World Health Organization, expresses doubts that it'll even end the pandemic. And you can find that article for yourself and read it. But I'm going to read one line, and it's a quote from Hans Klug, who's the European director, I think, of the World Health Organization, blah, blah, blah. And it says, quote unquote, I think it brings us to the point that the aim of a vaccination is first and foremost to prevent more serious disease, and that's mortality. So, I'm not an expert, and I would love if there was an expert out there watching this and they could comment in the comment section below, and maybe they'd like to be a guest sometime, but I doubt any health expert actually watches this podcast. But I thought the point of and the aim of a vaccination was sterilization of said disease. I thought if you didn't, and I might be wrong here, but I thought if you didn't achieve, and I'm talking about historically now, sort of pre-pandemic, I thought if you didn't achieve sterilized with a vaccine, it was a leaky vaccine. That was the whole point, was vaccines are created for sterilization of disease and for immunity. And now it's saying, so that sounds like a treatment, doesn't it? Not a vaccine. If it's to prevent more serious disease, then that's a treatment they're talking about, isn't it? Am I wrong? I probably am. Maybe I am. I don't know. Comment in the comment section below. But strange. Just that. expresses doubts about vaccines ending pandemic. I was just like, I thought that was the whole fucking point. Feeling it. I'm feeling this one. So, let's move on to my good mate, Leo the Wankstein. Leo Varadkar. Obviously, and again, because I procrastinated so heavily, I'm a bit outside of the current affairs time frame on this one, shall we say, but you have to talk about it. It's brilliant stuff. So Leo was caught, there was a photo came out around, I'm going to say the 5th of September, which is about 10 days ago, of Leo picking his nose effectively at a festival in the UK. And I first saw it on Niler 9, and he had a spiel about it. You check it out on his Instagram post. He has the photo and he talks about how it's a kick in the face for, I suppose, the crippled entertainment industry in this country. And I just thought if ever a picture told 1,000 words, that's one of them, isn't it? And we'll have a quick, we'll have to slip that in, the sneaky fucker. We'll have a quick look here. Festival. It wasn't a Mirror? No, Irish Examiner. Right. What's going on? What's happening? Why did it just morph into this? Like I'm wearing different clothes and all, but I'm still rocking the Talkin Guff merch. Actually, if you like it, this one's one of one. If you like it, put a comment in the comment section below. We'll get you one. They're €250 each, and we only accept cryptocurrency. So, this is going to be a problem, isn't it? Basically, these microphones, the Rode, I swear to God, the Rode Wireless Go are the biggest pieces of shit on planet Earth. After 40 minutes, that piece of shit, this one fucking went from 100, from hero to zero, basically. I've said it before. Anyone who's going to get this Rode Wireless Go fucking microphones, don't bother. They're shite. And they're not for nothing, like, fuck's sake. So it cut out, and I only realised it cut out 20 minutes after the fact, somewhere in and around a rant I was having about Leo Varadkar. And I don't even know where the fuck I got to on it, but I'm pretty sure we'll just crack on with it straight away, right? So, Leo Varadkar, you know that I think Leo Varadkar is a total tosser. And a photo of Leo Varadkar in around the 5th of September ended up on the internet, and it was of him picking his nose at a festival in the UK. And there's an Irish Examiner article that we're going to have a look at now, because it's sort of interesting, a few points to have it just go, oh, what's the story with that? And so let's have a quick look at that one. Here he is picking his nose. God bless him. What a twat. Oh, that's the wrong one, because we're going to get onto that one now in a minute. So one thing to note is that this happened on the weekend of Electric Picnic, which was obviously not allowed to happen. I think you're allowed to have gigs from the Monday after the proposed weekend of Electric Picnic. So they just were like, yeah, you can't do that one. And then you can do whatever you want, or whatever, not quite. But then on that same weekend, he was spotted over in the UK picking his nose at a festival. Cheryl Cole, he's a big Cheryl Cole fan, I believe, and he was over there checking her out. And so we're going to have a look at this Irish Examiner magazine, or article should I say, and it says Varadkar accused of doing what he wants while an industry slowly dies after attending music festival in the UK. A photograph posted on Twitter late on Saturday showed Mr. Varadkar at the Mighty Hoopla Festival on the same weekend. Electric Picnic was cancelled, leading to anger from the arts community in Ireland. Now, I think that it's important to say that this festival's 25,000 people attend Brockwell Park in London, all with proof of vaccination or a negative PCR test. So, blah, blah, blah. Look at Tom McKitton got back together for it. And Alexandra Burke, whatever happened to her? Tarnish himself attended a meeting with the industry last Monday ahead of an announcement on reopening. One source who attended that meeting said that when posed with the fact that festivals were going ahead in the UK, Mr. Varadkar said that the country was not an example for dealing with the spread of COVID-19 and that London reported over 3,000 daily cases of the virus on September the 2nd, 2 days before the festival. He still went to the festival. So his narrative is totally at odds with itself. On one hand, he's telling us that we can't use England, the UK, as an example, and that London has 3,000 cases, so beware, we can't do that. But he has no problem actually going and putting himself in that situation. So it sort of seems at odds with his own policies a little bit, doesn't it? And I swear to God, we're getting interrupted like a motherfucker with this podcast. So I was talking about Leo and this Irish Examiner article. Let's just see if we can fucking get it again. Oh, yeah, that was it. Blah, 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 he's picking his nose, blah, 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 currently in the UK, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, like I was saying, if he thinks it's so dangerous and such a bad example that the UK are setting, how come he's over there picking his nose in the middle of a festival? Then, spokesperson for the Taoiseach said he is currently in the UK on private time, where such events are allowed. So he's not breaking any rules, you know, he's not really... Let's have another little look at this Irish Examiner article. So the industry has received over 100 million in financial support from government, not including the unemployment wage subsidy scheme and the PUP pandemic unemployment payment. And so like there's another little passive aggressive things like, well, we fucking gave you loads of money so you can shut the fuck up, and we'll have there'll be a bit of pepper with that in a few minutes. So, obviously Buzz O'Neill Maxwell tweeted, ignored calls to open the industry and had treated the industry with apathy, ignores our calls, then fucks off to a festival in the UK. So he's obviously pretty whatever about that. And I know people, like I said, promoters and stuff like that, who work in the industry, who I saw through their social media platforms were enraged or outraged, should I say, by this thing. And, you know, that's their livelihood that he's fucking with and sort of flaunting, you know what I mean, over here doing his own thing on private time. Mr. Varadkar was also criticised by Kate O'Connell, a former Fine Gael TD and frequent critic of his. Miss O'Connell told RTE Radio that the picture was tone deaf. I do think that the picture, to my mind, shows a serious lack of self-awareness. I think the week that's in it, and I think if you're a policymaker making decisions that are affecting all of our lives, and then you leave the country within which you make those decisions to have your jolly elsewhere, I think it's jarring, she said. I think it was completely tone deaf. I think it's about leadership and showing example. I think a point comes where you have to be mature and say, how will this look? Exactly. But the thing about it is, I reckon the idea that he's tone deaf is sort of makes it then that he's just oblivious potentially, and that in and of its right is bad enough. But then I'm almost thinking he's a little bit of a fucking wanker, and he just like, well, I'll do what I want, you know what I mean, because I'm the Taoiseach. I'm the important person. I know what I'm talking about. I know what to do with myself. It's another example of, you know, when I said before, when he posted these pictures on Instagram or whatever it was of him and his partner enjoying their dinner, candlelit dinner indoors on lockdown, because they're sort of just like the rest of us. And I say, well, here's more evidence to the contrary of that. You know, he's not just like the rest of us. We haven't all been in this together. He lives, you know, a lavish lifestyle, and then it's easier to have gone through lockdown living in that lavish lifestyle, the lavish lifestyle he is accustomed to. And like many of the politicians and policymakers and members of the National Public Health Emergency Team, for them it's not the same. And, you know, so we spoke about all that before, but here's sort of more evidence to support that idea of mine, potentially. What do you think? Put it in the comment section below. Then I saw, when I was looking into this just a few days ago, there was an article in the Irish Mirror where Leo Varadkar breaks silence on UK festival picture after partner Matthew Barrett slammed incident. So I think online his partner had posted a letter where he was saying, you know, how dare this person invade his privacy, etc, etc, etc. The person who posted said picture of him picking his nose at the festival. What really annoyed me about this is that this became... almost then, this article is like sort of, we should feel sorry for him. He's had his privacy invaded and he's trying to come off as a hero. Like he says, Leo Varadkar said the photo of him taken at a UK music festival wasn't very flattering, but refused to say it was an invasion of his privacy. What a hero. How gracious of him. The Fine Gael leader had received huge criticism criticism since the snap was shared on social media, with his partner Matthew Barrett slamming the photo over the weekend. But Mr. Varadkar said instances like this come with the territory and did not say if it upset him. Again, what a hero. He'll just soldier on graciously, huh? Speaking on RTE's Morning Ireland, Mr. Varadkar said it wasn't a very flattering photograph. If the shoe was on the other foot, it is not a photograph I would post it of someone else. That's grammatically, that's what it said, but I suppose it's I would have posted of someone else. I would never have done anything like that. And I just, at that stage, I'm actually going fucking crazy at this stage, because it's like, you're not a victim here. You're not a hero. You're not like, you're nothing. You're a fucking hack. That's all you are. A career politician who would do anything for political capital. And that's what's going on here. You're trying to get back, recoup some of the political capital you've lost between the Catherine Saponi incident and this incident. And so don't bother with your victim bullshit. It's bullshit. Oh, it goes with the territory. You poor little sausage. I will literally right in your neck. Mr. Varadkar, blah, 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 but I am a public figure, and to a certain extent it goes with the territory, that if you are not out and about in public, people will take photos of you, and that's the way it is, and I accept that. Oh, you're so brilliant, aren't you? And Matt is very much his own person and is able to write letters without my permission. What a snivelling little wank stain. The view that I took, blah, 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 blah. Despite this, Mr. Varadkar said he will absolutely lead Fine Gael into the next general election. When is the next general election? And is that going to... So, because a couple of things I wanted to know was... who can call a snap election? Can only the people, either the party or the coalition of parties in power call a snap election? Excuse my ignorance. Does anyone know? Will you put it in the comment section below? And then, am I right in also saying that the next general election will be 2005? Is that right? And then, am I also right in saying that Micheál Martin and Leo Varadkar will swap and Leo will again be Taoiseach for 2 years whilst Micheál Martin becomes Taoiseach? If you know any of that shit, put it in the comment section below. How did that happen though? How did they just keep getting to play fucking hacky sack? You know, it must be some sort of political paragraph that came about as a result of coronavirus. A little bit of pepper. We spoke about the money thing. What was it that? Oh, yeah, because he said they paid off, basically, the entertainment industry so they can shut the fuck up. And now he is here in... Basically, there was an article, and I'll find it, I'll pop it here, but it said there was a rise in pension and social welfare... A rise in pension and social welfare payments on the cards for the 2022 budget. And isn't that a classic trick? Just like, here, we'll give you more of that. Shut the fuck up. Okay, fair enough. You know, dirtbags. And I can't wait till they get the absolute heave-ho. Because surely, at this stage, that tosser, for one, has spent his political capital and can't recoup it now, I reckon. Even with a lot of, like, so many people are just wise to this situation now where they're just like, he's a tosser, they're tossers, everyone's a tosser. Get them out. And so I don't think that his political capital will be enough to see him through the next election. Here's a horrible bit of pepper to you. Pepper hay. Bit of pepper hay. A woman. And it's in Italy. I actually thought it was in Ireland when I first read the article, but it's in Italy. But still and all, because like I said, like I'm so sick of having no money. Like, and I'm not I'm not very good with money, and I definitely make some irresponsible money decisions, definitely with the old, and so... but at the same time, I work really hard and I have done for a long time, and I just seem to and people I work under the premise that if you work hard, it'll all turn out all right for you. And I'm pretty sure that that's absolute fucking codswallop these days. Maybe the boomers of the boomers generation, that was true. But like I said, I see really nice cars driving around and I see people living lavish lifestyles. And remember we said before that everywhere you see wealth, you're actually looking at deficit as well. And obviously I live like a really comfortable lifestyle. I just survive financially speaking. But look, I'm blessed 100%. I understand that. But it's my perspective, it's my truth. And to never really have any disposable money just to do shit that needs to be done is really gets you down, you know? So where I'm going with this basically is that I've started doing the lotto like a motherfucker, and I actually obsess, like I fantasize for hours on end about winning said lotto and how I would just like be able to take care of as many people as possible within my circle and beyond, you know, and I would have big plans if I won the Euro Millions. Like, I don't need a lot of money. All I want is a nice gaff to live in and two fucking bossy kennel American XL bullies and a fucking killer ride, something to drive around in. That's it, really, and a few quid so I never have to work again, and just get to pursue creative endeavours such as this and potentially making music and the flavour country shit. So, but anyway, shut the fuck up. I haven't won the lottery thus far, and if I do, I won't tell you, but I'll start producing more content, I suppose. That might be one clue as to the fact of whether or not I've won the lottery. So, blah, 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 blah. Woman wins. I've got a little tickly thing going on all day. It's really annoying me. This is unreal. Woman wins €500,000 on scratch card, but shop owner runs away with her ticket. So the woman winner in her 60s asked an employee to verify the win, but when the worker asked the shop's owner to double check the winning ticket, the man ran away on his motor scooter and never came back. Gonzo. I would fucking murder someone for that. I would murder. It's just like, oh my God, it's finally coming true. Here, hey, I take. You can't do that accent, I swear. Some fucker takes it and jumps on the scooter and flies off. Fuck's sake. Bingly winkly. Shut up with the staccato, eh, motherfucker? Fangulo. A 2AAU. So that's the bit of pepper there. Here's a mad one, right? And this is going to be a bit long-winded and tangent by nature, but we'll get through it. So I watched, I've got the YouTube problem, right? I'm doing my usual YouTube rabbit hole, and a big thing, or not a big thing, but one of the things I've started watching a bit of now is like hood clips and various, I'm just going to check something. Okay, yeah, we're all right. It's called hood clips, where there'd be various situations of I don't know, there's a few different people who produce such videos, but they're basically in hardcore housing projects in the States, going around chatting with people, as I have it written here, a new thing, people going through and talking with residents of hardcore housing projects in the States. Anyways, I saw 2 videos in quick succession. This is actually the second of those 2 videos, but we'll talk about both, but I'll talk about the second one first. I'll just shut up, it's only confusing to me, you don't know which one I saw first, that is. Not that you don't know. Not like that. I'm not being whatever. So, the first one was about a guy called... the first one I'm going to talk about, confusing, was about a guy called Lloyd Avery II. And for anyone who doesn't know, and I didn't know, he's the guy from Boys in the Hood. He's like the blood gang member who's going around in the back of the red car. He's got the shotgun. He kills Ricky. He shoots Ricky with the double-barrel shotgun. Ricky! That's Lloyd Avery. Before we get into it, let's just say, Boys in the Hood, absolute classic. One of my all-time favourite movies. Someday, we'll walk in the rays of a beautiful sun. Someday, when your world is much brighter. And a fool with a dick can make a baby. It takes a real man to raise a boy. Fucking classic movie. John Singleton was the writer and director, I'm pretty sure, definitely the director. And it's a classic, right? And so Lloyd Avery's the guy flying around the back of the thing, and he's shooting Ricky, and he killed Ricky, and we hate him because he killed Ricky because we love Ricky. Ricky was going to be an NFL superstar. Thing about Lloyd Avery is that sometime after the movie came out, and he was promising, he had produced a sort of moderately successful tune for a moderately successful artist, I think, and maybe she was really famous, maybe it did really well, but definitely He did have some moderate success in the music industry. Then he got a part in Boys in the Hood, and it was a huge success, and it looked like he was coming up. And then his family and friends said he started getting a bit fucking Boys in the Hood himself. You know what I mean? And what I thought was strange about that initially, what made me keep going with it, was that he came from a sort of affluent background, sort of working to middle class family. He went to Beverly Hills High School. His best friend in Beverly Hills High School was Quincy Jones the third. I think it's Quincy Jones' son, who's obviously like total music and Hollywood royalty. But then, so yeah, he's getting a bit Boys in the Hood, and what was the evidence to that fact is, like, after Boys in the Hood came out, he was also in a film called Poetic Justice, which I've never seen, which is also John Singleton. It's Tupac Shakur as well, and maybe, is it Janet Jackson? I never seen it either. He's in it with his brother, because John Singleton sort of liked him, and apparently at the end of the premiere anyway, he stood up in the middle of the theatre and was like, yo, that shit was whack. And that obviously hurt John Singleton's feelings, and it was a bit of a blip on the blemish on their friendship, as it were. And then also, what did he say? During this time, he also said Ice Cube had a punk-ass handshake. And I would have thought that Ice Cube would totally maul you. He totally punched the head off you. And then he also was in a couple of other movies after that. One was Shot, I think it was called Shot, and then he was in another movie, and I can't really remember, but apparently he was a total nightmare on set, giving out about his role, how the role wasn't good enough for him, that he was too good for the movie in general, and all this sort of carry on, smoking weed around child actors on the set. And this would have been 25, 30 years ago maybe. Total nightmare in subsequent movies. Then he sort of decided to make a mad move. He wanted to write his own movie, and he was also wanted to produce music himself, rapping under the moniker of L.A. Juice, I think. And he moved to this hardcore housing project in the middle of South Central Los Angeles, and I can't remember exactly, like there's Watts and Compton stuff, but it's just along there, South Central Los Angeles. It was a place, I can't remember the real name of the area, but it was referred to in the gang terminology or whatever as the jungle. And so he moves into the jungle to research his music and his film script, develop both artistic endeavours. So he falls in with a load of teenage gangbangers, and then he just like starts doing sort of missions and stuff for them, and no one knows what these missions were. I suppose maybe dropping off drugs, that sort of stuff. But there was this air, and Quincy Jones is maybe quoted as saying that this sort of feeling that he mightn't come back from one of these missions sometime. And so it all got a bit crazy, I think, and he tried to distance himself from the jungle. He landed a couple more movie parts, but again, he was a total nightmare in both cases, I believe, on set to work with. And so, apparently maybe the problem was he was frustrated by the fact that he was recognised. So he was moderately famous. People were like, oh, you're the guy from that. And mainly, I think, the guy from Boys in the Hood, etc. But on the flip side of that, he was totally broke, you know? And so, somewhere along the line there, he got so frustrated with that situation, he was just like, fuck it, I'm a motherfucking gangster, yo. And he tried, and he walked it, you know? So, at some point then, he gets arrested for double murder, shooting a man and a female, I think. One who dies on the spot and one who dies sometime later in hospital. He gets a bit of a shady trial, some issue with the jury, I think, but he's guilty anyways, right? And they send him to Pelican Bay. And apparently Pelican Bay is the most hardcore prison in the whole of America, which I've said before, I'm pretty sure. I would assume that the US penal system is probably the most savage on planet Earth. You are definitely getting bummed and or raped every single day. And so, or I mean, bummed and or bashed every single day, you know. But he wants to go to Pelican Bay. He told his brother, no, I want to go to Pelican Bay. That's how into the G thing he is. He's just like, I want to go, because this is his thing. He says he wants to go to Pelican Bay. He wants a retrial, beat the rap on the retrial, come back to the streets, sort of like convicted murder, beat the rap shit, and get back into the hip-hop buzz so he can make a real fucking hardcore shit. That's what he's actually talking about to his brother and shit like that. But the retrial goes south for him. And I think before he goes back to Pelican Bay, he meets a chaplain and befriends a chaplain and becomes a born-again Christian. So he returns to Pelican Bay as a sort of born-again Christian, right? And then So in that respect, he's sort of walking a righteous path. You know, he's not causing any trouble in prison. He's helping, he's like, you know, conducting prayer circles. He's helping other inmates. He's speaking sort of in a positive and loving way to his friends and family over the phone. So it looked like he had turned a bit of a corner from an attitude, personality point of view for definite, right? Check this, right? They have him in a cell with, and he's trying to spread the gospel to a devil-worshipping triple murder dude. I think his name is Kevin Roby, right? So he's there going, he sends a letter to his friend, the chaplain, and he's saying in the letter that God has put him in that cell to help Kevin Roby give his heart to God. That's God's plan for Lloyd Avery. It's just like he's put him in this cell to help this Satan-worshipping triple murderer to give his heart to God, right? A week later, an argument breaks out over their ideologies, and obviously, you know, the born-again Christian and the devil worshipper, and your man Kevin Roby beats and strangles Lloyd Avery to death. And at this stage I'm going, fucking hell, like, what a mental story. But then it turns out that in spite of cell counts, your man Kevin Roby manages to keep the fact that he murdered Lloyd Avery undercover for 11 days. They don't cop it, even with head counts and all, for 11 days. At which point your man Roby has performed a satanic ritual on fucking Lloyd Avery II. And I was just like, oh my God. And like, how mental is that? Or when his brother, for whatever reason, his brother, for either paperwork issues or an identification issues, or maybe he just went, he smelled a rat or something, he had to go to Pelican Bay Hospital, or to the hospital at Pelican Bay Prison. And he said that when he walked into the room, the smell of death, and he said it was old death of his brother, and they said he'd been dead for a day, and he said, no, something's not right here. And a serious sort of whatever ensued. But that whole story for me was just, it was just like stranger than fiction almost, because, you know, he had a somewhat affluent upbringing, he had affluent friends, he had a potentially promising career, and he just went full fucking lunatic gangster and killed two people and all. It's sort of like, remember that other thing on Netflix about the guy, American footballer, really successful American footballer who killed a few people? And what was his name? It was something Rodriguez. I think he had a Hispanic name or a Latin name. But it's mad when you see that, isn't it? Like, have it all sort of fucking just go off at the deep end. I also saw a video about a guy called Cameron Terrell. And if you can imagine, South Central Los Angeles is surrounded to the northwest and south by extremely affluent and wealthy areas. Like, within a few mile radius of this hardcore impoverished part of the city, there is fucking major affluence and major money, you know, within the peripheries, shall we say. Some fairly wealthy areas, but also some of them are extremely so. And in 2007, a little rich kid from a place called Palos Verdes, which is an uber wealthy area. Now, this is a guy who always argues with his millionaire parents in their 4,000 square meter mansion. They take trips abroad, trips down to fucking Cabo, big fishing trips, all this sort of stuff. He has an abundant allowance. He has a fucking spanking new Mercedes-Benz. He's 17 years of age or something. And somehow he ends up with a best mate who was born and raised or lives in South Central Los Angeles, right? To the point where he's staying in this guy's gaff for extended periods of time, at some points even up to a few months. He even refers to his mate's mother as his mum. And so he's part of the family, you know what I mean? Truly. So his new mate, his best mate, who's from the area, is getting groomed for the Rolling 90s Crips, which are a gang, you know, the local neighbourhood gang, I don't know. And Cameron is offered a spot and he jumps at the opportunity. So the two boys are initiated in Jesse Owens Park in South Central Los Angeles. And your man is all in. This guy Cameron Terrell is all in. There's loads of photos of him on social media. throwing up gang signs. He has, his name is Milk. He has all like the blue neckerchiefs, the blue hat. They got these blue shirts with his nickname on them. He's got a, what is it, the Washingtons. There's some sports team called the Washingtons, and he has the W, but that's actually gang affiliation. It stands for something Washington Avenue or some W Avenue that runs all the way down through South Central Los Angeles. So he's really going for it. You know, that's the point I'm making here. And don't forget, this guy comes from a place called Palos Verdes, and it's like he went to Palos Verdes High. It's one of the most affluent areas in the whole of Los Angeles. He's all in, right? And then something happens where him and another pair of teenagers who are actually only 16, he's 18 at the time, I think, they go in this black Mercedes-Benz and they drive into a rival gang territory, and the two lads get out of the car and they basically go up and shoot a lad. They murder a guy who's not gang affiliated at all. They go up and go, "Are you such and such Crips?" And he goes, I don't gang bang. And they just shoot him, kill him, stone dead on the street. And then they run back and jump in your man's Mercedes-Benz and fly off. And that's how they get him, because there's CCTV footage basically of the black Mercedes-Benz, and they know it because they know that's that stupid little white fool who runs around with the rolling 90s Crips. And so they nab him, and they somehow then get the other two lads and nab them as well. So him and two other teens, blah blah blah. They all get caught, but he gets a $500,000 bail, and his parents post the bail, and so he gets out basically. And then they go to court, and there's video of the shooters getting in the car. There's video, that same video shows the car speeding off. He will claim in court that he didn't know they had guns and he was speeding off for fear of his life more than anything, not to get away, which seems totally ridiculous. There's loads of videos, like I said, of him with the gangbangers. He's actually in like music videos, you know, the way you'd see, like you even see the 8-6 crew or whatever, and they're all fucking, and he's one of the lads in the back just like bopping to the music in the video. He's got the gang tat, he's got the colours, like we said. And then there's also a video he posted on some sort of social media platform of lads kicking over a memorial of the person they murdered, who wasn't even gang affiliated. So his memorial's there. So, you know, they do that. The gang thing is they go in and tag and they kick over memorials and all, but that's a gang thing, and they do that to a non-gang affiliated person that they murdered in cold blood, and he's videoing it and posting it online. All of this is in court, right? Not guilty. He gets something like I can't remember what he gets, but he's basically not guilty. He doesn't go to jail. Nothing happens to him. And there's total uproar. They said it was very like a situation with a guy called Ethan Couch. Now, Ethan Couch is a I think maybe Len said something about this before. He killed 4 people driving under the influence of alcohol. 9 people were seriously injured all in all, 4 of which were killed, as far as I remember, right? And he's 16 years of age, he's drunk, he's got a learner permit, he gets in the fucking SUV, bang, 5 people die. His lawyers would argue that he himself was a victim of a thing called affluenza, that his parents were so well off that he never suffered any consequences for his actions. His sort of perspective of right and wrong was distorted as a result of having loads of money. And he got 10 years probation. And so that is just, it's insane, isn't it, when you see that sort of stuff? And the two guys, right, the two 16-year-old lads who shot, now, and look, you can say what you want about what crime they committed. I've already said they killed this guy in cold blood. But the 2 teenagers who actually shot the guy were 16 years of age, so they're kids, like, as well, you know what I mean? And they're living in an environment, we won't really get into this conversation too much, but they're obviously, you know, they've been failed, I'll say that much, and they are only kids. But whilst Cameron Terrell gets off, they are made to be tried as adults. They're 16 years of age, and they bumped them up to the adult courts to be tried as adults, and you're sort of going, so they're black, and they get bumped up to adult, and because then they can maybe be put on death penalty. I don't know, but it's definitely going to be worse. And he's white and rich, and he gets off, right? And then this other guy killed a lot of people in his SUV, and he got off as well. And the reason he got off is because he was so rich, he didn't know that he was doing a bad thing, you know? And so is that like to say, oh, he's so rich he didn't realise that you can't murder people? Like, is that what's coming down the tracks? Is that the precedent that's being set? So look, you might be going, what the fuck are you even banging on about, Ruben? But I thought these are two interesting stories. The story of Cameron Terrell and the story of Lloyd Avery II. And when I was first looking at it, I thought this is an interesting story because when Ringo was here, he had a beautiful little point, and he said that, and he spoke about it at length, and I'm going to just sort of boil it down to one of the sort of analogies or little ways he explained it to me. And he was saying that every individual, every human being has mad inherent potential to achieve anything. You know, that we're all exactly the same at birth, and we all have this inherent potential to do amazing, wonderful things. And that potential is sacrificed by situations, trauma basically, that is born out of what usually proximity to poverty was what he said, right? And then that proximity to poverty, how it has a, people who end up in the prison system, etc., etc., etc. All of these negative aspects of that, and how that proximity to poverty is a bit of an overriding factor in a lot of these cases. And then I was thinking, well, and I fully agree with what he's saying. You don't have to explain that to me. I just get it. You know, you want to fucking throw people under the bus, they're going to do what they have to survive. But, and I mean socially, you want to throw them under the bus socially, then they're going to fucking do whatever. They're going to be antisocial, probably. And so I was sort of going to say, oh, but look, these would be exceptions to the rule probably. And like that other thing we were saying about that guy, the NFL football player, it's like these are sort of exceptions to the rule. And even though these cases do happen, I still believe that it's that proximity to poverty that sends people usually down these paths that we've just spoken about. But isn't it still interesting to see people who I remember Ringo says the analogy would it's like the person with the best trainers and the personal trainer running the race, the finest of sports equipment, and they're racing someone who's like 20 yards back, has no runners and doesn't even know there's a race on. And so even the people, sometimes the people with those trainers and the finery of sports equipment and the personal trainer telling them how to run faster, even with that, some people still end up going down that track, but it's few and far between, and they are definitely, I would assume, a minority by comparison. But when I got to the end of writing, sort of structuring what I wanted to talk about, it ended up being a bit more about white privilege, I suppose. And we've already said it right there. It's like there's two white kids who got away with murder, effectively, and their black counterparts were tried as males when they were in fact juveniles. And so that stinks a bit, doesn't it? But the other thing is that Lloyd Avery went to motherfucking jail. He didn't get off. He went straight to motherfucking jail. He had no chance of bail. None of that. They banged his ass up with a fucking Satanist who squoze him to death. And you're looking at that going, wow, that's fairly contrasting as well, isn't it? And so, look, I suppose the moral of the story is whatever you want the moral to be, and whatever you want to take away from this shit I've been talking about for the last God knows how long. Feels good to be doing the podcast. I hope everyone's enjoyed this episode of the podcast. You know that I love you, and I hope you love me, but maybe it's not important. I'm pretty sure the most important thing is to love myself, and ergo, you should love yourself. Anyway, I'm just making sure that there was no more pepper that I wanted to put on the steak before I served it up. Yo. Now, we're going to leave it at that. Peace, love, unity, respect. Wagwan.
And document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from a humble past at one with the ground, the sound